Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Kimberly and today I'm going to be making some strawberry rhubarb jam. I went out this morning and picked these strawberries and harvested some of the rhubarb, but I've also been collecting strawberries over the last week or two and putting them in the freezer. So if you watched my earlier video on making raspberry jam, you know that I'm working to develop a master recipe for making jam. I've made jam many times in the past, and I've most often used the pre-packaged, pre-measured boxes of pectin. But more recently, I've been using and purchasing bulk pectin, but I've had trouble finding a recipe that gives me the correct proportions between my fruit, my sugar, and my pectin. So in my raspberry jam video, I used 20 grams of pectin per kilo of fruit, and it wasn't as firm of a set as I would like. So today, I would like to try doubling that and see what results we get. So to get started, I'm going to begin removing the tops off my strawberries and dicing my rhubarb nice and fine. I have all of my rhubarb chopped up, and I've gotten the tops off of my fresh strawberries, so I'm ready to start weighing out my ingredients. So I have my little kitchen scale here. I'm going to turn it on, and I've got it set to grams. What I want to do here is zero out the weight of my bowl. Okay. And now my fresh strawberries. So that gives me exactly 2.5 kilos. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to base my recipe on 2.5 kilos of fruit. Now when I've made strawberry jam in the past, I've run the strawberries in my Vitamix. I like to liquefy the strawberries and then have my diced rhubarb add a little bit of texture to my jam. But another reason why I've liquefied my strawberries in the past is so that I can get an accurate liquid measure on my ingredients. Well, since I'm weighing my strawberries and I'm basing my measurements and my proportions of sugar and fruit to pectin on grams, I don't need to do that. So what I'm going to do is just get them in my pan and get them, some of them are still frozen. So I want to get them in my pot and start warming them up. And if it seems that I need to break them down a little bit more, I can just do it in my pot with my immersion blender. So let me get these started on the heat. Okay, now when I take into consideration my ratio of fruit to sugar to pectin, I don't want to include my diced rhubarb. Why? Well, I think this is going to work. I generally think of my rhubarb as being an inclusion, much like if you're making chocolate chip cookies, you have your dough and then you have your chocolate chips. And you could add more or less chocolate chips as you choose, but the basic cookie recipe is still the same. So that's how I'm thinking of this, and I might have to tweak it. I'll let you know at the end exactly how it turned out and my final thoughts, whether I think I need to make any adjustments to it. But I'm wanting to measure my rhubarb and use half the weight in rhubarb as I have in my strawberries, but not include it in my total weight of fruit when calculating my sugar and my pectin. So I hope that's clear. So let me weigh out my rhubarb. So I have 2.5 kilos of the strawberries, so I want to have 1.25 kilos or 1,250 grams of my rhubarb. That's what I'm going to go for. So it's just a tiny bit over. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. So my rhubarb is measured out. I could add it at this stage, but because I might want to blend up my strawberries a little bit with the immersion blender, I'm not going to add these quite yet. I want to get my pectin weighed out now. So I've got a little bowl. I'm going to zero out the bowl so I'm not including the weight of that. Now, last time when I made my raspberry jam, I did 20 grams of pectin per kilo of fruit, but that didn't give me the firm set that I was looking for. So I want to try doubling that today. So in this case, I want to use 40 grams per kilo. I have 2.5 kilos, so I'm going to need 100 grams of pectin. So I have my 100 grams of pectin measured out now. Now I want to measure out my sugar. Now I've read different recipes for your sugar to fruit ratio in grams or by weight. You can use anywhere from 75% to 100%. So like a 1-to-1 ratio, or you can do 75% of the weight of the fruit in sugar. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm thinking I want to do is 80%. What I'm looking for is 2 kilos of sugar for my 2.5 kilos of fruit. These berries sure do smell good as they're heating and thawing. Okay. Okay, I have exactly 2 kilos of sugar. The next thing I want to do is thoroughly mix my pectin in with my sugar. This is so the pectin doesn't get clumpy. So my 100 grams of pectin to my 2 kilos of sugar. I'm hoping this will give me the set that I want, but regardless, I'm sure I'll have a product I can use. If it's not as firm as I want it to be, we can always use it as a berry syrup. But only through this experimentation can I figure out my master recipe for how to use my bulk pectin. I like how accurate grams are. Grams are pretty tiny, so if you get it down to the gram, that's really accurate. Recently I made my own sourdough starter, and we've been doing a lot with sourdough. I've been experimenting with sourdough English muffins, and we've also had a lot of sourdough waffles, so we've run out of all of our jam and syrup. I'm really overdue for making more. Okay, that's well combined. What I do still want to add is just a little pat of butter to the berries, because the fat from the butter will help reduce foaming in the jam. So I have my berries all blended into a puree with my immersion blender, and I've added my rhubarb. So the rhubarb cooled it down a bit. What I'm looking for at this stage is I want to have a full rolling boil with my fruit, boiling so hard that I can't stir it down. One thing I am a little concerned about is whether or not my pot is big enough for this size recipe. So that's something else I'm trying to learn and hone in as far as my jam making, is exactly what's the right amount that I can fit into my pot. It might be that 2 kilos of fruit instead of 2.5 would have been better. Once I have a full rolling boil, I'm going to add all of my sugar and pectin mixture at once and stir it in. I'm going to allow this to return to a full rolling boil and then set a timer for 1 minute. After the 1 minute's up, I turn off the heat and remove it from the stove. This is very hot. Now I want to act quickly getting it into the jars. Another thing I'd like to make note of today is how many jars I end up with based on the amount of fruit I started with. I want to continue to be using this bulk pectin, which is so much less expensive for me. So that yielded 10 of these pint jars, and I got 3 half pints, so 11.5 pints. I'm pretty pleased with that, and I prepped almost the right number of jars. I had 1 jar extra, so I always try to end up with a few jars ready extra when I make jam. So that took about 40 minutes start to finish once I had all of my fruit cut and prepped and ready to go, including the cutting time. It took more like 1.5 hours. And we'll just leave these sitting undisturbed until tomorrow, where we can check and see how well they set. So it's been a few weeks now since I made this product, and I want to show you the consistency. It's got a nice tight seal, even though I didn't water bath can it. And this is not the consistency I was going for strawberry rhubarb jam. Now this is a perfectly usable product. You can see it's pourable. It makes a great strawberry rhubarb syrup, and we've been using this on our waffles, but this is still not the master recipe that I'm going for my jam. So I've ordered a different brand of pectin that I want to experiment with. I'm still hoping to come up with a master recipe that's going to give me the right percentage in grams, or the right ratios in grams, of how much fruit, how much sugar, how much pectin to get a jam consistency. But for now, we'll enjoy this. Thanks for watching.